Hello, dear friends. In this video, we will see how to calculate variable overhead variances, fixed overhead variances, and sales variances. So we will take this question. Following information is obtained from Mrs. Will Company Limited. Budgeted production for the period is equal to 600 units. Budgeted variable overheads is 15,600. Standard time for one unit 20 hours. Actual production for the period 500 units. Actual variable overheads 14,000 14,000 rupees. Actual hours worked 9,000. Calculate the following variances: variable overhead expenditure variance, variable overhead efficiency variant, and variable overhead variance. And we need to reconcile them. So to calculate the variable overhead variances, we need to calculate first one, we need to identify actual variable overhead incurred during the period. Actual variable overheads incurred during the period is how much we have to calculate, find out, and that is normally will be given in the question, and that we will name it as VO1, variable overheads 1. So variable overheads 1 is what is the actual variable overheads incurred. So actual variable overhead incurred is 14,000. This is VO1. So we will write here variable overhead incurred during the period is rupees 14,000. 14,000 is the variable overheads incurred. Actual variable overheads incurred during the period is 14,000. Next one is variable overhead VO2, standard variable cost for actual hours worked. Standard variable cost for actual hours worked. So for the actual hours worked, we have to find out at standard rate. So what is the standard rate per hour? Per hour, what is the standard rate we have to find? How do we find the standard rate? See here, budgeted production for the period is 600 units. Budgeted production for the period 600 units. Standard time for one unit. If you want to make one unit, you require 20 hours. So to produce 600 units, how many hours are required? So it will be 600 into 20 will give you 12,000 hours. I repeat again, to produce one unit, you require 10 hours. Budgeted production is 600 units. Therefore, how many hours they have to work for producing 600 units? It will be 12,000 hours. For 12,000 hours, the budgeted overheads is 15,600. So standard rate per hour. If you want to find out what is the budgeted cost, it is 15,600. Divide this by 12,000. You will get what is the rate per hour. Per hour, how much? It is 15,600 divided by 12,000. You get rupees 1.30. So this is the rate per hour. 1 hour if you work, the variable overhead rate will be 1 rupee 30 paisa. Okay. Now you have to find out what is the actual hours worked. Actual hours worked is given to you. Actual hours worked is 9,000. So 9,000 into 1.30 will give you what is FO2. VO2. So that is rupees 11,700. So what is this? This is standard variable cost for the actual hours worked. Actual hours worked is 9,000. And what is the standard rate per hour? We know it is 1.30. Therefore, if you want to find out what is the cost, it will be 9,000 into 1.30. You get 11,700. That is standard variable cost for actual hours worked. Now, next one is VO3, standard variable overhead for the actual production. So for actual production, what is the cost? What is the standard cost? So if you want to find out what is the standard cost of actual production, you must find out what is the standard cost per unit. One unit, how much? Standard cost per unit. Standard cost per unit is how much you have to find. So you know that the budgeted cost is 15,600 for producing 600 units. So to produce 600 units, it's 15,600. So 15,600 divided by 600 will give you what is the standard cost per unit. What is the standard variable cost, variable overheads per unit? So 15,600 divided by 600 will give you rupees 26. So rupees 26 is the variable overheads per unit. How many units did you actually produce? How many units did you actually produce? Actual production during the period is 500. So 500 into 26 will give you what is the standard cost of actual production. So what is the standard cost of standard variable overhead for actual production? It is 500 into 26. So 500 is the actual production. Per unit, it is 26. So you get 13,000. So we have to calculate three values, VO1, VO2, and VO3. What is VO1? It is the actual variable overheads incurred during the period. What is VO2? It is a standard variable cost for actual hours worked. And VO3 is standard variable overhead for the actual production. And after you have computed this, you can find out you can find out what is the expenditure variance, efficiency variance, and variable overhead variance. So what do we do? It is VO1. VO1 is the actual minus the standard. Since standard is less than the actual, that means it is adverse. So this is adverse. So if it is positive, I said it is adverse in my earlier video. So actual is more than the standard, so it is adverse. Next one, you see, it is VO2 minus VO3. This is a negative, that means it's favorable. So right here, 1,300, it is favorable. If it is negative, it is favorable. And the last one is variable overhead variance, which is VO1 minus VO3. So VO1 is 14,000 minus VO3 is 13,000. You minus it, it is positive. Therefore, this is adverse. Now, we have already calculated expenditure variance, efficiency variance, and variable overhead variance. Now, you want to reconcile the values, then what do we do? Variable overhead variance should be equal to expenditure variance plus the efficiency variance. So you see here, 1,000 is the variable overhead variance. Expenditure variance is 2,300 adverse, and this is 1,300 favorable. So adverse is A is greater, 2,300 minus 1,300, you'll get adverse 1,000. So that is what it is matching. Expenditure variance is 2,300 adverse and efficiency variance is 1,300 favorable. So which is greater? 2,300 is greater. So greater's numbers sign is adverse. So adverse 2,300 minus 1,300 is 1,000. So right hand side value is equal to the left hand side value. So we have reconciled the variable overhead variances that we have computed. Now we will see the next question. In the next question, we will see how to compute the variable fixed overhead variances and how do we reconcile them. So we'll take this question. From the following cost data, calculate the fixed overhead variances and reconcile the same. So here they have given budgeted 20 days. There is the budgeted days. Man hours per day. 1 day man hour is 8,000. Output per man hour in unit is 1. And then budgeted overhead cost is 1,60,000. Okay, actual they have worked for 22 days. Man hours per day is 8,400, but the yield is 0.9. 0.9 is the yield, and the actual overheads incurred is 1,68,000. So how do we work out this sum? We will see now. So first one, we will compute few basic things. First one is you find out what is standard fixed overhead per day. Per day. Per day, how much? We will find out per day how much. It is, what is this? 1,60,000 is the total variable overheads. And how many days they are working? 20. So it is 1,60,000 divided by 20. What do you get? 1,60,000 divided by 20 is 8,000 per day. So standard fixed overhead per day, we have computed it is 8,000. Now, in the same manner, standard fixed overhead rate per hour. Per hour, how much we will compute. Now, you have to find out how many man hours, because it's in a per man hour day they have given. Therefore, how many hours, how many man hours you have to compute. Or how many man hours per day? 8,000 man hours, and they are working for 20 days. So total man hours will be 8,000 into 20, will be 1,60,000 man hours. For 1,60,000 man hours, the cost is 1,60,000. So per man hour, how much? Per man hour, how much? It'll be 1,60,000 is the cost, divided by how many man hours? 1,60,000 man hours. That means per man hour, it is rupee 1. 1 rupee. Okay, so I calculated what is standard fixed overhead rate per day. I calculated it is 8,000 rupees. Per man hour also I calculated, I got rupee 1. Now I will find out standard fixed overhead per unit. That means 1 unit how much? 1 unit how much? Now they are saying that the output is one unit per man hour. 1 unit per man hour. Read this: output per man hour in units. One, because 1.0 means it's one. So 1 unit per man hour. So how many units do they produce? What is the budgeted units? It'll be 1,60,000 into 1 will give you 1,60,000 units. So the cost divided by the number of units will give you what is the fixed overhead rate per unit. So per unit it is 1, per man hour it is 1, per day it is 8,000. So whenever the fixed overhead variances they are asking you to calculate, you calculate these three: standard fixed overheads per day, standard fixed overheads per hour or per man hour. In this case, it's man hour, and then per unit. We have calculated, and then we will start working out FO1, FO2, FO3, and so on. Now, first one is FO1. What is FO1? It is the actual fixed overheads incurred during the period. What is the actual fixed overheads incurred during the period? This is normally given in the question. So this is FO1. So actual fixed overheads incurred in the period is 1,68,000. So you write 1,68,000 here. Now the second one is budgeted fixed overheads for the period. So budgeted fixed overheads for the period. For the period, what is the budgeted fixed overheads? It is given to you, budgeted fixed overheads. It is 1,60,000. This is budgeted FO2. Budgeted fixed overheads they have given, it is rupees 1,60,000. And this is 1,68,000. So this is given in the question, and this is also given in the question: budgeted fixed overheads for the period. Now the third one, FO3. Fixed overheads for the days available at standard rate during the period. Now, fixed overhead for the days available. So per day, you have already calculated per day how much? It's 8,000. But what is the actual number of days they have worked? 22. So what are they asking you? Fixed overheads for the days available. Days available is 22. Per day, the standard rate is 8,000. So how do you compute FO3? It is, uh, s- uh, what is the number of days? 22. So 22 days they have worked. 22 days they have worked. 22 days. So 22 into rupees 8,000. So we'll give you how much? 8,000 into 22 is 1,76,000. So this is given in the question. Actual overheads, how much? Budgeted fixed overheads, how much? It's already given in the question. And here, fixed overheads for the days available at standard rate during the period. In this particular period, the days available is 22. 22 days are available. And per day, what is the rate? It is 8,000. So multiply the two, you get 1,76,000, and that is FO3. Now coming to FO4, fixed overhead for the actual man hours worked. Actual man hours worked. So what is the rate per man hour? You have already calculated, it is 1 rupee. And what is the actual man hours? If you want to find out actual man hours, please note man hours per day. Per day, it is 8,400. That is actual. And they worked for 22 days. Therefore, actual man hours worked is equal to 8,400 into 22. 8,400 into 22. Because each day they work for 8,400 hours. So 8,400 into 22 is 1,84,200. 1,84,800. 800 man hours. So what do we do here? So fixed overhead for the actual man hours worked, we will be multiplying 8,000 for 1,84,800 because this is the man hours. Per man hour, it is rupee 1. Therefore, what is FO4? It is 1,84,800. 1,84,800 is the man hours. 1,84,800. Okay, this is rupees. So last one, we have to find out fixed overhead for the actual production. Actual production means how many units did you produce? Actual production. So per unit, it is 1 rupee. 1 unit, if you produce, it's 1 rupee. But how many units did you actually produce? So they are saying that the output per man hour is 0.9. So how many hours did you work? It is 1,84,800 man hours you worked. And per man hour, the output is 0.9. That means 90% of 1,84,800. So 1,84,800 into zero point 0.9 will give you 1,66,320. So 1,66,320 units they have produced. That is the actual. So you know what is the actual man hours? That into 0.9 will give you the number of units produced. So actual production per unit will be 1,66,000, 1,66,320, and per unit the standard rate is rupee 1. Therefore, how much? How much rupees? 1,66,320 is FO5. So now we can compute the fixed overhead variances. How do you calculate? Expenditure variance is equal to FO1 minus FO2. Now it is positive, therefore adverse. Second one, FO2 minus FO3. FO2 minus FO3 It is negative, therefore it is favorable. Next, capacity variance is FO3 minus FO4. Again, it is negative, therefore favorable. Now, FO4 minus FO5 will give you efficiency variance, and this is positive, therefore adverse. And FO1 minus FO5 will give you positive, therefore adverse. And volume variance FO2 minus FO5. It is negative, therefore it is favorable. 6320. 6320, it is favorable. So after you have computed the variances, expenditure variance, calendar variance, capacity variance, efficiency variance, fixed overhead variance, and volume variance, then you have to reconcile. So how do you reconcile? It is fixed overhead variance is 1,680 adverse. Expenditure variance is 8,000 adverse. And volume variance is 6,320 favorable. So if you add these two, see which is greater. 8,000 is greater. So A is, you are to, if you add these two, you will get A. This is negative, this is positive. So 8,000 minus 6,320. 8,000 minus 6,320, you will get 1,680. 1,680 adverse. It is reconciling. The next one is volume variance. Volume variance is 6,320 favorable. And here calendar or idle time variance is 16,000 favorable. Capacity variance is favorable 8,800. These both are favorable. So F and F, when you add 16,000 plus 8,800, 24,800 favorable you get. When you add these two, it is 24,800 favorable. And this is 18,480 adverse. Now, which is greater? It is F. F is greater. Favorable is greater. Subtract these two. 84,800 minus 18,480. You will get adverse, favorable 6,320. So it is left hand side is equal to the right hand side. So we have reconciled. Now the last one, we will see one more question, question number 16, where they are asking you to compute the sales variances. So first one, sales value variance, sales price variance, sales mix variance, sales quantity variance, and sales volume variance. So they have given you all this, product X, Y, and Z, quantity, and the standard sales price, and the total sales, quantity, and this is actual sale price, and the total sales is given to you. So how do we compute the sales variances, sales price variance, mix variance, quantity variance, and sales volume variance? Now this is similar to your material variances. Material variances, what you used to do, in the same fashion we can do. So there we'll use to compute M1, M2, M3, M4. Same way here we will find out S1, S2, S3, S4, and so on. So we will take this question. Total sales value variance. So we will write SV1 as sales value 1. So actual sales value realized. Actual sales value realized. So what are your sales? Sales is um, actual. What is actual? It's actually given to you 500 into 5, 2,500, 600 into 6.25, 3,750, 400 into 6.75, 2,700. So 8,950 is your actual sales. So SV1, it is not necessary that you have to prepare the table because they have already given to you. You can straight away write sales value 1, actual sales value realized is that whatever the amount that is given in the question. So now we will just copy. I'm just doing the calculation in case if they have not given. So what we will do, quantity 500, then 600, and then 400. So this is the actual sales quantity. Price is 5, 6.25, 6.75. You get 8,950. So 500 into 5, 2,500, 600 into 6.25, 3,750, 400 into 6.75, 2,700. So this is the actual sales value realized, 8,950. Now, the same quantity you have to take it here, but the only difference is instead of actual price, you have to take the standard price. Had you sold these units at the standard price, then what is your sales? So what is your standard sales? It is 5, 6, and 7. So you have to write here 5, 6, and 7. You will get what is the standard value of actual sales. Standard value of actual sales is 8,900. Now SV3, standard value of actual sales, if these sales had been effected according to the ratio of standard mix. So what is the standard mix? You know what is your input? Your input is 1,500. Not input, your total sales in quantity is 1,500. Had you sold this had you maintained this standard, this mix, because 1,200 means 500 will be X, 400 will be Y, and 300 will be Z. Had you maintained this mix, then what is your sales value? So that is what we are going to compute. So what is the mix if you want to find out? It is 500 out of 1,200. And here it is 400 over 1,200. That is the mix. And here 300 over 1,200. But what is your quantity here? Actual quantity 1,500. So 1,500 means how much? How much should be X? How much should be Y? And how much should be Z? If it was in the standard proportion. So what do we do here? It is 500 over 1,200 into 1,500. Similarly, here it is 400 over 1,200 into 1,500. And here 300 over 1,200 into 1,500. So if you add these three, you should get 1,500. So this is your actual sales. But had you maintained the standard mix, then what is your sales value? So take the standard price, you will get what is SV3. And the last one is SV4, standard value of sales as per standard or budget. This is also given in the question. You could straight away write 7,000. No need to calculate it. But then I will uh, take it. I will do it. See, steps actual is given to you. Standard is given to you. 500, 400, 300, 5, 6, and 7. And this is the value. So 500, 500, 400, and 300. This is what is the standard given. And the standard prices are 5, 6, and 7. You get 7,000. This is SV4, standard value of sales as per budget. Okay, as per the budget, this should be your sales. So this table is not necessary. You can write straight away 7,000. Similarly, for SV1 also, this table is not necessary. You can write 8,950 because the table is already given in the question. However, here I have worked it out also. Okay, after you have computed this, then you have to compute what is the sale sales value price variance. So how do you calculate price variance? It is SV1 minus SV2. So SV1 minus SV2. Now, very important, very important. Now you're getting positive. Now positive will be taken as favorable because this is your actual sales and this is your budgeted sales. So sales is a revenue. So your revenue is more, your actual revenue is more than the standard. Therefore, if it is positive, it will be favorable. And if it is negative, it is adverse because this is sales. It is not cost. If it was cost, then if it is positive, it is adverse. If it is negative, it is favorable. But in this case, this is the revenue, so it should be the opposite. So actual sales is 8,950, and standard is 8,900. So actual is more, therefore it is positive. It is favorable. Okay. Now coming to the second one, SV2 minus SV3. SV3. So you get positive. That means this is also favorable. This is favorable. This is also favorable. Next one is SV3 minus SV4. What do you get? It is 1,750 positive. Again, this is favorable. And then SV1 minus SV4. Minus SV4, we get 1,950. This is also positive, therefore favorable. And the last one, the volume variance, SV2 minus SV4. You get 1,900. All are favorable. And how do you reconcile it? How do you reconcile? Reconciliation will be sales value variance is equal to sales value price variance plus sales value volume variance. So 50 plus 1,900, you get 1,950 favorable. Here also 1,950 favorable. And volume variance is mix variance plus the quantity variance. Therefore, 150 favorable plus 1,750 favorable. When you add both, you get 1,900, which is sales value volume variance. I hope you have understood how to compute variable overhead variances, fixed overhead variances, and sales value variances. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. God bless.